Hi everybody, welcome to another adventure. Today we are going to start a year-long and a week-long project on measuring our shadows. When we measure our shadow, we're actually measuring the rotation of the Earth on its axis, and we're also measuring the orbit of the Earth around the Sun. Let's see how we can measure our shadows by ourselves. When we measure our shadow, we need to find a place where we actually have a shadow. I have a shadow right here, and the sun is right there. Now, while I could measure my shadow right here, this might not be the best place to measure my shadow, as I notice, while I have a shadow here, my shadow is sort of sharing this space with trees and shrubs and the house. So throughout the day, if my shadow changes, my shadow might get lost under the shadow of something else. So I'm going to look for an area that's a little bit more clear with less shadows to share with. This area might be a little better because now whatever direction I go, I'm pretty much the only shadow around. So, how do I measure my shadow? I don't have a tape measure, so I could walk and count how many steps tall my shadow is. I counted a lot of steps, but something doesn't seem right. When I walk, my shadow moves. So I have to figure out, how do I count my shadow with my feet without my shadow moving? How do we measure our shadows? By ourselves. Since we don't have anybody to help us, we're going to look at how can we measure our shadows by ourselves with the help of two other things. They could be pieces of wood, they could be frisbees, they could be balls, they could be flower pots, trash cans, just two things. And the way we start this off is we're going to take the first thing and we're just going to lay it on the ground. Now, I stand facing the piece of wood and I want to move my body so that the head or the shadow head lines up with a part of the thing that I can remember. So I'm going to line up my body with the very, very tip of the wood. Now I'm going to take the second piece of wood and line it up at my toes, and notice I have the end of the wood by one of the shoes. Now I can measure. My shadow was 6 shoes long. After you've recorded your information, use your Chromebook or an iPad or a phone to take a selfie video of you and your shadow. So face the sun and hold the computer or the iPad in such a way that you can see your shadow and try to see some of the background. We're going to use this later so we can see what direction your shadow was facing. Use a tape measure or ruler to get more accurate measurements. Remember to place your objects, or my boards, in places where it's easy to remember which part of the board you're measuring from. So I measured from corner to corner of the boards because that was easy. If you have smaller objects to mark your places, it becomes easier. Wherever you mark, just remember to use the same place every time you measure throughout the day. Finally, remember to record not only how long your shadow was, but also record the time of day you measured and the date that you measured. The rest of the material we can do in class or we can do together, but outside you always need to record the time of day, the date, and the shadow length.